We had some breaking news come down just as we were going to air. Mark Dantonio steps down as the head football coach at Michigan State. I don't know that the move itself is that surprising. The timing of the move a little surprising, as I don't think, this far removed from the college football season, we don't expect coaching changes to be made. But Mark Dantonio, someone that has obviously had not only tremendous success, he won about 67% of his games in Michigan State, but is also sort of just synonymous with the program, the face of the program. So we're lucky because ESPN football analyst Bobby Carpenter was here on campus walking by, so we dragged him in here. He joins us in studio with the Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, everything for less, only at Walmart. Bobby, you have unique perspective on this, obviously, because you had the chance to play for Coach when he was your defensive coordinator at Ohio State, right?
Yeah, I played for him in 2002, 2003 before he ultimately took the Cincinnati job. And he was like my personal recruiting coach as well. And he grew up in a town about 40 miles away. Our dad, he played against my dad in high school. And so there was always like a nice bond there. Very, very tough coach, very fair coach to everybody on the roster. And I said this, earlier on my local radio show. I owe a lot of my professional development in football and skill development to him, but then also my development as a man, because he was relentless in what his expectations were. And there were a lot of days that I would cuss that guy under my breath. And I tell young players that all the time. If there's not a coach that you cuss under your breath every now and again, he's probably not getting the most out of you. And Mark certainly did that.
It's interesting. Why now?
I think when you look at this and you look at everything that they were doing, like they had some issues obviously on the offensive side of the ball, and they were trying to figure out, I guess, how do we improve that? Do we go after certain guys? We try to bring someone in, not all that different than what Ed Orgeron did, bringing in Joe Brady to help revolutionize the offense at LSU. And you kind of search through this, and I don't know if they were having the type of success of maybe bringing that guy in, and then you start looking around and thinking, man, maybe this is the time where I might not be the guy to do this anymore. I've had a good run, and it's tough. Like coaches, when they're all in, like when you feel like maybe you start to spend a lot of it and it's getting tough, like maybe it's just the time for me to step away. I don't have any more oil left to burn.
Well, I think that's interesting, Bobby, because back-to-back 7 and 6 seasons, obviously a disappointment, especially this year. I think people went in with a little bit higher expectations. He was asked to do some things to his coaching staff, and instead of bringing in new people, he basically just shuffled existing people. And to the point that you just made, I thought by the end of this college football season, he looked physically exhausted on the sideline. So for whoever comes in, obviously it's an underperforming Michigan State team to what expectations are, but that's a lot of shoes to fill. How does somebody come in there and do that?
Yeah, it's going to be tough. You mentioned like underperforming the expectations, and this is what happens. Like, become a victim of your own success. Like before Mark Dantonio got there, people looked at Michigan State as, hey, really talented team. They can win the big game. Probably going to lose a couple games over the course of the season that they shouldn't lose. And, a team that usually finished 7 and 6, maybe 6 and 7, maybe get 8 and 4, 9 and 3, but nothing that was ever like going to wow you or compete for Big Ten championships. And then all of a sudden, he wins Big Ten titles. He's winning Rose Bowls. He's the only other program outside of Ohio State, the Big Ten, to make it to a college football playoff, and doing all that with really not recruiting at the same level of some of those elite teams because they developed guys so well. And so, it's whoever takes over that job. You're playing against Penn State, you're playing against Michigan, you're playing against Ohio State, and now the expectations have been raised to where not that it's okay to finish fourth or third, like we need to be finishing 1 or 2 sometimes when we put together a run and we develop some of these players.
The degrees of separation from those campuses that consume the Big Ten, you're talking East Lansing. The Detroit Free Press is saying that the administration has their eyes on Luke Fickell, who's done fantastically his last 3 seasons at Cincinnati. You're saying that makes a lot of sense. If that's the route that they go again, that's just the Detroit Free Press just now.
So 2 guys that people have kind of looked at, Pat Narduzzi, who is at University of Pittsburgh, and he was the former defensive coordinator for him at Cincinnati and then also at Michigan State. And, when he left a couple years ago, that's when the defense kind of started to take a little bit of a step back because he was just so good. So good. So I think he's a guy that's similar to Mark that would be able to come in there and pick this thing up and move it. But that's if he wants to leave Pitt, and he's had some success there as well. But you mentioned Luke Fickell. Like both of them were on the staff at Ohio State together early on. Very similar personalities. I think that there's a high level of mutual respect between the two. And then obviously the parallel in careers where you see Luke Fickell went to Cincinnati from Ohio State, has had a lot of success, potentially go to Michigan State. It was the same thing that Mark Dantonio did, left as a defensive coordinator, was there for 3 years, had a lot of success before ultimately going to East Lansing.
I mean, those numbers are pretty fantastic. When Fickell took over Cincinnati in 2017, Finished 4-8. Obviously, it wasn't his initial recruiting class. 2018, 11-2 with a bowl win. 2019, 11-3 with another bowl win.
And they beat UCLA in both of those seasons. Now, UCLA isn't great, but it's still a program that has a little bit of cachet to it. And if you watch Cincinnati play disciplined football, their offense is pretty innovative, but they do run it a lot. But it's a lot of the same core tenets of things that you would see when you saw Mark Dantonio's teams at Michigan State. So if they want a similar type guy, Luke would definitely be that.
You got to feel like, though, Cincinnati is just puckered up as a school to this because, let's face it, they thought they survived the hiring cycle and somehow managed to keep Fickle. And I mean, 11-3 for Cincinnati this year, that's darn good, right? I mean, that's just when you look at their level of success this year was far better. I mean, they're on the rise as a program. I'm just saying that they got to be concerned.
Absolutely. And like you said, they survived it. And I think Luke, he has 6 kids. They're in the Cincinnati area. I know his wife likes it there. They're both from Ohio. It's close. His family, he's originally from Columbus. So, there's the proximity for help and all these things. Like, I think it was more about quality of life. And he just wasn't going to take another job just to get out of there, just because it may have been a little sexier, I guess, initially. He wanted to be taking the right job. And I think this could be that right job for him.
Real quick before we let you go, when you look at what's next for Michigan State, what should the expectation be moving forward?
I think, they've obviously had a little bit of a down cycle. Recruiting hasn't been quite as good. But I think coming in for the next coach, 8-4 is probably where you need to be. 9-3, I think, is good. A 10-win season at Michigan State is what I think the expectation is on a high note.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports and analysis, download the ESPN app. And for live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN Plus.